I haven't walked up here in a long time. I used to walk here all the time. And then a few years ago, my allergies have just gotten so bad, it's really difficult to breathe if I'm doing really strenuous walks. And this is a 3.5 to 4 mile walk up to the base of the tram, where you take the tram then to ride to the top of the San Jacinto Mountains there. And I would just get so out of breath, I thought, you know, it's probably not a great idea to be doing this really strenuous walk at my age. But even more than that, there are long stretches here where you're just, when I was walking, I would just be by myself, and there are a lot of wild animals up here, and I almost had an encounter. Well, I did have sort of an encounter with an enormous, gosh, what do they call them? Longhorn sheep? We have a lot of those here in the desert, up in the mountains, and one just crossed the road right in front of me, kind of ran across the road, and just, you know, maybe a couple dozen feet in front of me, and it looked like it was, I don't know if it saw me or if it just didn't have any interest, but I thought, gosh, if that huge sheep decided to attack me, there would be nothing I could do. I was up here all by myself. And we have mountain lions and coyotes and other things, and I don't have anybody that likes to walk with me up hills. Jim doesn't like to walk up hills like this at all. So I don't walk up here much, and I'm not sure how far I'm going to go today, but it's a nice day. It's not the clearest day or the most beautiful day I've ever seen, but the sun is out. It's already probably 65 degrees, not too bad. It's pretty warm. Here we are in the first weekend in January. So I just thought I would come and take my walk up here this morning, just see how far I can go. I'll just go until I get out of breath, and then I'll turn around. Most years, those mountains are completely white. So even though this is the desert, the mountains are pretty high and they get a lot of snow most years, but we've been in a drought for the last few years, so not as much snow these last couple of years. Wow, this person's actually running up the hill. They have the annual Tram Road challenge where people either run or walk up the hill. I did it for quite a number of years, but I walked. And I just barely made it walking. I mean, this is like, I don't know if how steep it looks or doesn't look right now, but I can tell you it's like walking upstairs for almost 4 miles. And the higher up you get, the higher the stairs get, the steeper the stairs get. It's pretty, it is what they call a Tram Road challenge. It's definitely a challenge. And you definitely feel like you've accomplished something if you make it to the top. Even if you don't make it to the top, even if you just make it halfway, or however far you go, it's a challenge from the very beginning. When I was a kid growing up back in the 1960s, my grandparents owned a home right here on the side of the hill in this neighborhood. And you see these boulders here. My grandfather loved to hike, and so when we were kids, me and my brothers would go with my grandfather, and we would hike all the way up to the base of the tram, which is, like I mentioned, about 3.5 to 4 miles from the entrance center at the bottom, which is on Palm Canyon Drive. And I don't know, right now it looks pretty brown, but normally that's a green spot. That was sort of like a little oasis there, and you'd walk past that and go on another maybe quarter of a mile to the base of the tram. And I used to love hiking in these boulders, chasing lizards. Surprisingly, after decades of doing that with my grandfather, I can say I never once saw a snake. And I don't know if maybe because we were hiking mostly in the winter and spring, you know, when it was cooler. Definitely would not want to be coming up here hiking in the summer. Every year, nearly every year, someone dies from dehydration from hiking here in the summer. Hiking up the hills, and then they just run out of water and die. It's very treacherous, as you can probably as you might be able to tell, just looking at this terrain here. And there's not a lot around. If you're up here by yourself, there's no one around. There are a lot of cars going up and down all day long, so I guess if something happened to you right here on this paved walkway, someone would probably stop. But if you're up in the, if you're hiking through these boulders where no one can see you, and this is where we used to hike. In fact, back then in the 60s, I don't think they had this paved area here. They had the road. The tram opened, I believe it was 1963. And I think they added this later, because I know we never took a walking path like this. This is like a real luxury. We were hiking over boulders like this for hours from the bottom of the hill. Well, they were up the hill, so it wasn't quite the bottom. So it's probably only around 3 miles. They were up near the top of the neighborhood at that time. So this is just the back entrance gate from this community called Desert Palisades. This was mostly, these are lots that you buy. They're multi-million-dollar lots. And you buy the lot and then you build your own multi-million-dollar home. And let's see, there's one going up there. Look at those spectacular views. Those are the kind of views my grandparents had. They were on the side of the hill, as I said, 4 or 5 streets down below this. And these were the views they had. So my grandfather would just sit on the back porch overlooking the pool and then watching the planes take off from the airport every day. And then when he needed some exercise, he would come up here and hike up the hill. So, but this is all new since they lived here. This development here. So the elevation is now 1,000 feet. So 1,000 feet higher than where I started. I can't remember exactly how many feet it goes up to the base of the tram. So it really is a pretty steep incline. And you can see where I started at the bottom of the hill there. I don't think this is even a mile, maybe a half a mile. I'm just going to go a little bit further, maybe up to this bend here. Actually, the way I'm feeling today, I think I could walk the entire way, but I don't know, for some reason as I get older I'm getting more cautious, which is weird. You would think you would be more cautious when you were younger because you have so many years ahead of you, and by the time you were old you would think you would be less cautious, knowing that you'd already lived a good long life. And so, but for some weird reason we do the opposite of what makes sense sometimes. I mean, every now and then you'll pass somebody or someone will pass you, but there's long stretches where there's no one around, and I don't know, it just feels a little too dangerous with all the wildlife mostly. Here's another really cool house, cool modern house, nestled at the base of the mountains here, and you could probably, I don't know if you can see the lots there. I think I've gone about a mile, so I'm going to turn around and walk about a mile back. If you watch my other channel, then you might remember the story that I told about a young woman who was hiking alone up in the hills, up in the woods, and she was attacked and killed by a pack of coyotes. Now, I know that doesn't happen very often. It's apparently pretty rare, but it can happen, and who wants to be the rare exception, right? So you can see it's pretty isolated up here. So I'm going to head back down now. I think I've walked up about a mile, so I'm going to walk down. That'll give me a good 2-mile walk this morning in one of my absolutely favorite places to walk. So how about you guys? Do you have a favorite place to walk? Is it a remote area like this up in the mountains? Is it a steep, challenging walk, or do you just like to walk where it's less of a challenge? Just remember, this spot, even though I love it, this is the middle of winter. I mean, you wouldn't know it by looking at it, and I've got my t-shirt on. It's really warm. It's probably 65, 70 degrees now. When you walk, you get a lot warmer. Definitely do not walk up here in the summer, or most of the year even. You know, even in the spring, it can get up into the 90s, and same with the fall. There's really only a few months of the year when you can walk here and not have to worry too much about the weather, but definitely bring a lot of water with you because you can get dehydrated very easily. This definitely is one of my favorite memories of childhood, is climbing all over these boulders to get to the bottom of the tram. I mean, hours and hours with my grandfather. How we never broke our necks or broke any bones or twisted our ankles or anything, I don't know. I guess we were very, very lucky. Now that I think about it, even though none of us broke any bones or nothing happened to us when we were hiking with my grandfather back in I think it was 1971, he did die. I think he was 72 years old, and he died while hiking in the hills here in Palm Springs. There's really no good way to die, but since we all have to go at some point, if you love hiking, like my grandfather did, then that was probably a pretty good way to go. I can definitely think of a lot worse ways to go. I'm sure he would have felt the same. And this week I want to give a shout out and a very big thank you to my newest channel supporters, Nicole C. and Dana Pretzer. Thank you both so much for your extra generous donations to this channel using YouTube Super Thanks. Your contributions are very appreciated. Okay everybody, until next time, stay safe out there on your walks and hikes.